So this is you. You haven't watched this yet, right?
I haven't seen a single clip
Man.
of this panel. Obviously, I saw several clips of the election integrity panel, which we'll go over after, because it was Destiny who I was, pretty much just beating up on. And not that feels good. It's just I feel so strongly about election integrity. I feel the vessel of our democracy depends on election integrity. If we have elections, not selections like we do have, then we can actually get some change. But if we have selections, not elections. But anyways, that was that. So I haven't looked at one single clip of this here panel.
I can't believe it. I can't.
Even the moderator, Jamie Cheese Slice, was, her name is Tiffany Justice. She started Moms for Justice. So very interesting.
Is that who's talking here? I'm not sure who the names are of all the people.
Well, who's talking all the way to the right of the microphone is the moderator, and that is Tiffany Justice, who started Moms for Justice. I actually had sat down with her several times before. We got to know each other before I did this panel, and she's pretty awesome. I made a great connection. She's going to come on my show. So our show.
This first clip is her at the introduction. She makes a bad joke, and you didn't help her out. And I'm gonna try to give you my thoughts on what you could have done to help her out.
Okay,
let's play it.
I'll start with a joke. How do you know if someone's a communist? They tell you all the time that they're a communist.
Okay, that's a mediocre joke, but you could have stepped in there, Pasta. You could have helped her out. You could have gone and said something. Oh, just like CrossFitters and vegans or something like that.
Yeah, and I said to myself, I went back and said it's a vegan joke.
Right. But you could have given her an extra pop there, and then raise the energy in the crowd. So
okay, but all right. So that was the beginning. That was the beginning of the thing, and I was still I was on visitor territory. So I was feeling out the crowd. I didn't want to start stepping on toads. I wanted to let the cadence go. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that there was a lack of laugh from the crowd means that they weren't too warm to it anyway. So,
I think though you could have helped her out there and gotten a bigger laugh out of that joke. But anyway, let's go on. This is your introduction when you first introduce yourself to the crowd. Nobody there knows who you are. And let's go ahead and take a listen.
Wow, I am the odd man out on this panel tonight. I can tell you that much there.
I guess that makes you an imposter.
An imposter. I am the imposter for tonight.
See, now that joke, that's a better joke. And she jumped in there, tried to step on your toes a little bit, but I think it was actually funny. Wasn't super funny, but I mean, it got a little chuckle out of me the first time I watched it. Yeah, it's not quite a dad joke, but it's in that dad joke territory.
How many people are in that room? Are we hearing the audiences? Are they even paying attention at this point?
They are. They are. There was about 50 people downstairs and about 30 people upstairs. So it's just about under 100 people.
Okay.
Right around 100 people for the night with everybody at the bar and everything. So just about 100 people in that room that night. Maybe a little bit more.
If we keep making imposter jokes, I'm going to have to start downloading sound bites from the game.
All right. Let's get to the good part, the meat and potatoes, not how bad my comedy is and can improve.
Hey, well, this wasn't your fault. You haven't done any comedy here.
Well, let's see. I was the odd man out. Let's see what I had to say.
Let's go ahead and keep listening.
Well, listen, I really think the name of this panel, Are We Becoming a Communist Country, is the wrong question. I really don't think it's about communism versus capitalism. I think it's more about freedom versus slavery. There's good and bad in every single ism, right? When you say we're becoming a communist country, what communism are we becoming? Are we becoming a Trotskyite country? Or is it more the old-fashioned Stalin communism? Which type of communism country are we becoming? Now, I will say this right off the bat. I think we're becoming more of a technocratic, woke, fascist kind of country, right? All the interests in this country are controlled by who? The stakeholders, the corporations. The definition of fascism, I know this being an Italian guy, my Mussolini, is the merger of corporations and state. But there is an attempt to kind of put this woke kind of mentality on all the communism out there. And really, to tell you the truth, it is the old trick in the book. It's divide and conquer. They want to make sure that you're blaming your neighbor. Blame the communists, not the ruling class, the oligarchs, the man behind the curtain. And that's what we have to ask ourselves. It's about freedom versus slavery. Let's not get duped in there and pointing the finger at communism. At the end of the day, there's a lot of great things about communism. There's a lot of bad things about communism. It's a workers' movement at the end of the day, right? It's about seizing the means of production. It's about not letting the corporations run wild. We're in the most capitalist country in the world, right? And we have mass censorship going on right now. They're shadow banning people left and right. We know what's going on with the January 6th people that have been locked up. So I would argue the fact that this is not about communism. It's not the first time they've tried to let's pin the problem on a communist before. They've done this throughout history. So really, it's not about communism. It's about those people behind, the man behind the curtain or the woman behind the curtain. We don't know what their pronouns are, but it's about control. And in any ism, they can control what's going on, whether it be capitalism, communism, socialism. And I've visited a lot of Latin American countries before where I do a lot of election integrity work. And I see a lot of socialists out there, really, to tell you the truth. And their move of socialism is a move of collectivism, right? It's about playing in the sandbox together nicely. We have a limited amount of resources. We have to share it. And we also have to come together to fight off the empire. In Nicaragua, their form of socialism is about fighting for freedom. It's about being free of the United States empire, stealing their resources, forcing these monetary loans on them. So I argue against the fact that we are turning into a communist country. We have stakeholders. It's a fascist country.
All right, stop. Get back. Get us back on there.
Nailed it.
Do you have a microphone drop anywhere, Jamie Cheese?
I don't. That was a very good, very, very good.
Was that not good? Was I not coached up? Was I not in the zone? You better clip that up right there. Pasta's introduction to communism. I'd like to see what my colleague has to say before you say anything, Mr. Jamie Cheese Slice, if that's okay with you. I know you're producing this segment.
Go ahead.
Okay, so look, right off the bat, let's just get this out right away. You nailed it. Okay?
Thank you.
You nailed it.
Yes.
Okay. This audience is not ready to hear this. We have to constantly plant seeds to these people. And I'm saying I'm not saying these people, we need to be aligned together. This is the frustrating thing, because you're talking about a system. These guys cannot prove anything about communism not working or working, because we've never had a chance to even see it work, because our system has been dominating for years and years and years and years. So what we're seeing right now, and you're just connecting obvious dots. The problem with the right-wing populist movement is the same problem we had. So I can recognize that, being homeless left. The problem we had as a homeless left is we were in denial that our way wasn't working, and we needed to bust out of that. In a lot of ways, the right, even though the right has been ahead of us on a lot of things, when it comes to freedom, when it comes to COVID, when it comes to a lot of things they're a little ahead of the left on, they're way behind on this. There's a lot of denial.
Yes.
They are living in denial about a system that doesn't work. It's not sustainable. And they want to blame it on outside forces. And we need to take responsibility for our broken capitalist system and stop trying to label these things. Like you nailed it, Pasta. You said you're labeling something. You don't even know what you're even talking about.
Yeah.
Our system is the one that's failing. When Biden and Kamala Harris are not extreme communists. They're going with the exact thing that you guys set into place way long ago. You set in this corporate takeover. You gave them you gave the corporations the free pass to do whatever they wanted. And here's the results of that. This is the opposite of communism, is what we're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. By the way, really quickly, Jamie, while you're holding that thought, like people in the chat, like Political Bordello, who's nothing but critical of me, very, very harsh. He'll make a comment like this right here, right? So it says, Pasta should spend more time educating himself and less propagandizing for neoliberal socialist shysters and their electoral system. I mean, I would think even a person like that, who's been nothing but like over the top, critical, whatnot, would have appreciated what I was trying to do there, right? Because we said before, I don't play team sports, so I didn't want to come off as this kind of Che Guevara ideologue who's sitting there defending communism, right? Like I tried to point out there are some good things and bad things, meaning that at the end of the day, I believe too much centralized power is really bad. However, I do believe that central planning does work. And, you know, there's a lot of positive things there. And I also want to explain this movement that of communism, it's more of a workers' movement. That's all it is. And I'm going to stick up for workers. We don't have real capitalism here. And I said that later on in the whole thing when they say, oh, we don't have true capitalism. They went to that. Lauren Chen went to that.
Of course.
I'm like, you know who says that? Yeah. Communists. They said we've never had pure.
Well, we got that clip. We got that clip. We'll go over that later.
Okay, sorry. So, but anyways, I would just hope that some of the people who are very critical in this chat or some of my critiques out there would think, hey, man, that was really good at what you did of coming across to it. And you didn't play anybody else's introductions. They're all like, the guy on that panel over there, Cheese Slice, goes on Bannon on the regular basis, right?
Yeah, maybe I should have
for institutions, but go right ahead.
Maybe I should have played them, but I mean, they're all basically sounded the same. So I just was like,
what did they sound like though?
Well, just saying it's the same thing you would hear on Fox News or politics, where it's just
Even
like
more. They were like banning us.
they describe the problem, saying, "Look, America's falling apart, blah blah blah," and it's communism's fault. I mean, that seems to be this.
Yeah, pretty much.
But like with that comment you just put up, I mean, this blows my mind. Like political bordello, all Pasta does is spend time educating himself, and there's nothing he does that is being propaganda for neoliberal, the socialists. All he is critical of them all the time. I mean, so what show are you watching? Like, you're not.
Well, listen. I'm trying to differentiate between actual criticism and just haters, right?
Right.
That's all I'm saying. And if political bordello doesn't want to give me any props over there, then we know exactly what he is.
Yes.
You know, first of all, we don't even know who he is. He could be just somebody else who's had a history of the past of creating other things and kind of like, doing whatever. And guys, can you do us all a favor? Can we share it out there right now? Can we share the show? I haven't shared the Twitter. I'm going to do that right now. And I'm also, Jamie, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Libby Evans, who is one of the panelists over there, what her connections are. And you can look at the different entities she's on. You know what I'm saying? She was the one who was the hardest one on that panel.
The one all the way on the other side.
Yeah, she was all the way on the left-hand side. But I'm going to put that up there so we can just copy link to profile.
Yeah, I got a clip of her as well where she kind of
after that clip of her, we'll be able to examine what she's all about. And I just put that in there, her Twitter and whatnot. But you can see what we're up to, because I mean, me coming out there with that statement, nobody got to hear the other panelists, but they were very much like, I would describe them like Bannonites, where they go out of their way to blame China, to blame, there was a Uyghur moment with me and Joe Allen, and he was trying, I was like, and I wish I would have mentioned Operation Mongoose or Operation Cyclone, because it was one or the other where we actually used the Uyghurs to run Stinger missiles into the Mujahideen. And this was a problem that we created. And, even though it's distorted by the Bannonites, I believe, and about the Uyghurs, it's a CIA talking point. I have friends that go to Xinjiang all the time, and they can tell you that the Uyghurs are not oppressed there. You know what I'm saying? It's just one particular group of Uyghurs that are very much, it's not a re-education camp as much re-education camp because they get to go home on the weekend, but it's showing them that there's other life, other art forms, whatnot, because they want to try to find a way to acclimate them into Mandarin society. So, I mean, it's just twisted. But anyways, I know I'm going off on a tangent here.
Yeah, it's
I really
definitely not a
genocide.
I'm not sure what the truth is over there, but what I've been able to tell from all of the
do we see anything from political bordello coming in? He seems kind of quiet, man. But okay, well,
probably
whatever.
Left. You called him out, he probably left. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Uyghurs. But one thing I do know is it's not a genocide. That's the only thing I do know for sure. But there's probably something going on there. I just don't know exactly what it is. I can't trust our media, and I can't trust the Chinese media either. So it's just kind of have to go on what independent journalists say. So all I know,
I know a lot of independent journalists. Maybe when Sasha comes on the show, does he know about China too as well?
Oh, he's absolutely versed in China. We're gonna we'll certainly have to have a conversation.
Carl Zah was always my inside guy, and Danny Haifeng, obviously. But you can't do that because since they are Chinese, people say, well, of course they're going to be pro-Chinese.
Yeah. Can we get back to the mindset?
Let's get back to this.
Can we get back to the mindset of this right-wing populist that keeps leaning on this argument that this has no weight? Because I want to get in the head of this. I'm not trying to beat up on them. I'm trying to understand. We have to go for understanding. What is about this mindset that they have this fear of China taking over the world? The same fear that, by the way, that we know that the left wing has of Putin taking over the world. It's the same fear. Yeah. It's like, where does this come from? When are we ever going to have a real populist alignment where we can take responsibility for the things that we both sides got wrong over these years? We admitted to what we got wrong, the identity politics, all this shit, like all that hope and change shit. We got all that wrong. They need to start looking at the system that has failed. It's crumbled right in front of us, and it's not an outside entity. It's us.
Okay, I think the programming and the lack of real media from these areas. There's like actual think tanks, like the whole thing I mentioned when we kind of got a little spouty about Steve Bannon. I mentioned the Hudson think tank, right? He's part of the Hudson Institute. That's a pro-war kind of like CFR style. Everybody's an enemy. I mean, for crying out loud. The Hudson Institute just named Nikki Haley as, I believe, their chair, right? So, and you just saw how she was on the campaign. She was pro-war, biggest everything.
Warmonger.
This is the same group that Steve Bannon is a part of, right? And that needs to be pointed out. He was a keynote speaker just recently at the Hudson Institute. And he also gets funded by a guy named Miles Guo. And, Joe Allen pushed back to make this guy look like he's an ex-Chinese descendant. He's pushing back against the evil communists like he's some hero. I saw one of the Steve Bannon dudes who has a show, right? I can't remember. We played it last week, Jamie, I believe, where this guy has a shirt with Miles Guo, and he's wearing like the sunglasses those black sunglasses you see I wear. He's wearing those glasses, and he's on a shirt next to Martin Luther King and Gandhi. The friggin' nerve of these people, Matt. I mean, they're delusional. Like, they'll do anything to justify that. But I think we have to ask ourselves, why is it dangerous for these people to think that way? And I have two reasons. Number one, it keeps us from looking at the eye on the prize. I said that in my opening. They don't want you to see the man or the woman, whatever their pronouns are, behind the curtain, right? They don't want you. And I only say that joke because I'm trying to connect with them, right? And I don't appreciate the fact, Jamie, you don't give me credit on that joke, because there was a nice chuckle throughout the audience. You couldn't see their face, but it was because I was using their jokes to connect with them, right?
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that we have to go out of our way to connect with them?
Yes.
Who's going out of the way to? I'm just pointing that out.
All right, so
you know what I mean?
Yes,
yeah.
But
we have to take the high road, right?
Yes, that's
we always
our
take the high road.
responsibility.
Okay.
We have to say, listen, they don't want you looking at the man behind the mirror. If they can get you to blame somebody else other than the ruling class, then they won, especially if you blame your neighbor. And that's why they always say the opposite side, Biden's communist. Oh, look at all these commies out there. So they make you blame your neighbor. They make you stay in that team sports, right? They make you say, like, even if you concentrate on the president and the Congress, you're not concentrating on real power. Yeah. Real power sits above all them. We know this, we understand this, and that's what we have to understand. So that's the first problem. It's a distraction. You're not looking at the real enemy. The second problem is, if you blame communism, you can then if you blame communism, you can then pin communism on your closest enemy, or your I don't want to say your closest enemy, your biggest enemy in your mind, which is China. You blame communism, you pin it on China, and now you manufacture consent for a war. And we know this by historically seeing history, right? Looking at history all the time. When the population starts looking at the ruling class and understanding that they have the problem, they take us to war. This is something that General Salente said. So I don't want war with China, and I want us looking at the major problems. And that is the issue on why it is dangerous for all those people to spew some of the stuff they spew without providing real context of what communism means to a lot of people.
And why did they want to go to war with China? Because China's doing better than us economically. At the end of the day, that's why. And we're the ones who helped them get to be that way. We set them up. Well, can I just have a comment on that last clip we watched where you did your intro? I like the way you asked them what kind of communism, because there's different types of Marxism versus Trotskyites. That was a good thing to bring up. So I don't think any of them have ever thought about that before. The only thing I wish you had said, and this isn't taken away from whatever you did say, is last week we talked about how our system isn't just fascist; it's more of a like a techno-feudalist society. You never brought up the feudalism angle of what we're really living in, and I think that would have helped with your part of the discussion. Other than that, I think your intro was pretty damn good.
I did want to keep it. I did consider bringing that into my repertoire, my vocabulary, but I thought it would be going over their head too much. Feudalism, you know what I'm saying? Some people would have gotten it, but remember, I was trying to connect on a white belt level too as well. I mean, I think I really brought that maybe a little yellow beltish, but I didn't want to get too deep. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point. That's a good point. So I wasn't thinking.
I did stay within my parameters. Listen, before I did this, I did my homework, as any person should do. I talked to Matt several times on the phone. I had him on the show. I talked to Don DeBar, which I want to get another clip too as well ready that Don DeBar went kind of viral on. And if you know Don DeBar, he's a Marxist through and through. But anyways, listen. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of lay it out, set a tempo, and really, to tell you the truth, you can't see the other side of the panel, how they looked at me as I was looking at them saying those things. I got their respect quickly. I demanded it, and I got it quickly. So it was a good debate for me. I wouldn't necessarily say I won. It was like 4-on-1, right? But I would say that I held my own much better than Destiny held his own on my side. He was just lost. So good.
You did what you had to do 4-on-1 is hard. I had a similar situation we'll get into later at the UCLA. I actually went 1-on-20 at one point. We're going to talk about more on.
You see what we're doing over here? Pasta to go, the homeless left.
Yeah,
we're going
we're taking-
4-on-1. Look at this guy.
Well, 1-on-20.
This
That's
is
a
an
different
important-
kind of video.
No, we got that. No, we got a 20-on-1 situation. But I'm going to tell you something. There, coming off of that, because it's such a high coming off of something like that. One thing, and Leslie pointed this out to me, who was there with me helping film on Thursday. We'll get to that later. But I'm just going to apply this to you, what I just saw, and knowing what you accomplished in that panel is even the looks on the four faces of the people that may or may not have been hearing you, or may have gone over their head. You might have even gotten a smirk. I think I saw a smirk at the early part where you're starting. It's like they have to go through this process of what is he talking about. You have all the other people watching, all the other people listening, and you're planting so many seeds. So whether you're taking on 4 people, you're taking on 20 people, there are people watching and they are listening and they're going, holy shit, that guy just nailed it for me. And they're going to leave that situation. They're going to move on to their conversation. So absolutely, that's the adrenaline rush you should have with you when you leave that situation.
And if nothing else, you're planting seeds in their heads. If they're not ready for it, the seeds are there and they're going to start growing. And it might take a couple years, but it'll start coming out, and they won't know where it came from. But it was you. You're the one who put those seeds, those knowledge seeds in their brain.
If you do it even on the subconscious, listen, Jamie, make sure you just copy the link to the show and put it in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here, Pasta to Go. I'm with Matt Weinglass. Jamie Cheese Slice on the ones and twos is also producing this segment today on my experience on why communism, why we are not turning into a communist country. That was the panel. Are we turning into a communist country? I stated no against it, but I was 4-on-1. It was the Minds Fest. We'll have the link to the whole video in the chat, so please go check it out. I tried to get on the level with these people there and speak on their level, and I thought I did a halfway decent job. We just played my opening comments. Like I said, if you want to see it, please make sure you go and check it out. And also quickly, again, I want to remind everybody, if you haven't joined my friend's channel, The Homeless Left, it's a non-tribal approach to the news, live every Thursday at 12 noon on Pacific time here on Rumble, YouTube, and at The Homeless Left. Please go check it out. Jamie, please go on. We just established some stuff. I'm trying to run the show as well as do the segment all in one.
Well, I've got several clips, so let's go.
All right.
This one, I believe we're talking about what kind of capitalism are we talking about here?
Okay.
Let me get this off the screen.
Okay, so several things. Number one, you asked what kind of communism. I would say it's largely Marxist, right? If we're talking about the woke ideology, it's largely using Marxist rhetoric, Marxist principles to define oppressor and oppressed classes. The only difference is that instead of talking about, the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie, we're talking about white versus brown, straight versus gay. So we're essentially replacing social classes and ownership of the means of production with different immutable characteristics. So I think, Marx is the first thing. The second thing, by no metric is America the most capitalist country in the world. I mean, some of the highest corporate tax rates.
Do you have any comments on that? Because I think it's just absurd.
Well, I mean, really quickly, and I'm going to hand it over to my partner over here.
And I'm not done with this clip, but that part right there just.
But really quickly, that's Lauren Chen. She's got an amazing following. She did some comedy after. I think she's a little bit more of a novice comedian than Jimmy Dore, who followed, but she still went up there. I give her her props for getting up there and doing comedy to that audience. There was only 2 comedians. But what she's doing is what a lot of Steve Bannonite people do and whatnot, is kind of bastardized communism, in particular, Marxist communism. They're trying to make it a cultural Marxism, you know what I'm saying? And therefore, they try to say it's more about cultural wars. The only problem is Marx didn't create cultural Marxism. It was created on a campus. Steve used to refer to it, Steve Poikin, and that is as campus Marxism, because it was created on a campus years after, and it was meant to be a divisive tactic to use the cultural war issues to bring that in and to staple it on communism, to staple it on the workers' revolution. So therefore, it would get twisted and rejected, and it would be sought as the problem. So what she's doing is she's just going along with the narrative that cultural Marxism came from Marx. It did not. Don DeBar is a Marxist, and you can hear Don talk all the time. Never about cultural issues. It's about geopolitical issues, economic issues, and that's what Marxism really concentrates on. It's a workers' issue before anything else. Not to say that it doesn't have any problems, But once again, they've kind of bastardized the whole Marxism movement.
I think they've identified something and given it the label cultural Marxism, which isn't actually tied to Marxism. But the thing they've identified, I think, is a real phenomenon.
Yeah, but don't we go along with it too? We also
we do. That's part
woke, and we went with their woke. Woke used to mean
Right.
something good. We allowed them to redefine it, just like we've allowed leftists to redefine so many different words, what it means to be a progressive. You know what I'm saying? We've allowed this stuff to happen so many times. So aren't we partially to blame for allowing it to happen?
Right. But I mean, the more important thing is to understand what the word is and how it's being used so we can talk about the subject and get down to it instead of fighting over just the way the names of things. Because I think that's where I think that's where we get lost a lot when we have these arguments and then nothing ever gets accomplished. But the reason I stopped you here is because she just said, America's not the most capitalist country in the world. And I was like, what is she smoking? I mean, how could she live here and say that? Like, how are we anything but capitalist?
Not only are we
uber capitalist.
Not only are we the most capitalist, we police the rest of the world. We put sanctions on countries to stop them from doing a different type of government every time. Right. How many times do we have to see us implementing our brand of government on other people and then calling that the most successful, the best system in the world is our system that we have to force on other people.
Right. And we force it on our own people. You know, you're not being capitalist enough. Here, you eat some more capitalism. How are we? That's just, how can she say that? And how could the people in the audience listen to her and agree with that? I don't understand that.
I got an idea about how to connect. You talk about using language that will connect with them. We have to say things that will get them to understand. How about this? The COVID jab didn't work because they said you have to be enticed to say it, to be forced to do it. If it's something that makes sense, people will do it on their own. Why do you have to force something if it's so good? I guess that was my takeaway on that one.
You know, I gotta say, I don't know do you have anything about the COVID and Chinese stuff at the very end ready or no?
No, I don't have.
Well, I just got to say that towards the end, like, you know, when the crowd got a little bit pushed back towards me, I said, you know, well, let's talk about the COVID treatments.
Oh, that's
China,
true.
United States.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh my God, they were locking people in the house. It was draconian. It was crazy. I said, I'm talking about the medical treatment. Look at what the WHO put up on their board. And this is what China did. They gave their patients hydroxychloroquine. It wasn't hydroxychloroquine. It was just chloroquine.
Yeah.
Same effects. They gave them vitamin C packs, actual drips, vitamin C drips. A lot less people died because they gave other alternative treatments rather than go home, come back, and we'll put you on a ventilator, give you some remdesivir, which failed the fucking Ebola trials. Excuse me for cursing, Mom, but it did.
And don't forget, say goodbye to your family on Zoom. Yes. You'll never see them again.
I avoided that question.
It was a little bit of a Go ahead.
I avoided that question because we're on YouTube, but you went into all of that, and also when they talk about the lockdowns, they weren't specifically locking people in their houses; they were locking the exits from
the buildings,
so that they was forcing everybody out one door, and that way they had to go through the checkpoint to make sure.
I know it's just hard to argue that stuff when you see the welder and the Chinese guy welding the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, because
it's hard to have those discussions, but once again, that's for their citizens to decide, not for us. And in Shanghai, they pushed back and they closed down the whole lockdown operation and went home. And they did that in Shanghai because they knew Shanghai had a lot of connections to the West. So they were, you know what I'm saying? So they said, okay, they listened to their civilians and they said, we're packing up and going home. Because they understood if that stuff spirals out of control, there's over 1 billion people in China. They'll overthrow the government if they want to. That's up for them. But you know what they have that we don't have? High-speed rails, nice roads, less housing, less homelessness, more private ownership, more home ownership. They have all these things. So the American dream is alive and well, but it's alive and well in China. How about that?
Yeah,
I don't know. I kind of like all the homeless people everywhere in every subway here, every major city. It kind of has an American vibe to it these days. It feels American.
Yeah. How do you like the train system back from the 1970s that we're still using? It's absurd.
It was just the future.
In your own house.
We used to have homeless people. We called them hobos, and they always rode the trains everywhere.
Hey! Those are not my pronouns. Let's keep continuing on with the show. What else do we got next?
Let's keep going with this.
This is more of Lauren Chen.
Yeah, I think you respond to her here.
Yeah.
Cut down a little bit under Trump. That's not very capitalist. Now, there's also, I think it's the World Economic Index. There is an index that every year ranks countries based on their economic freedoms. America is not even close to the most free. If you look at ease of opening a business, a free market, lack of regulation when it comes to things like taxes, America is actually very heavily regulated.
I think she's correct about that, by the way. But
she is. And I made that point that China, when the part when I said they have unfettered capitalism, and you said no, they have regulated capitalism.
Well, I got that clip too.
Yeah, what I meant to say, and we'll get to that, is that they have less regulations in China. They have a lot of regulations here that they want to believe they're protecting you and protecting the environments, but they're really trying to keep small businesses down so the corporation can win. So that's why they're over-regulated. China has none of that.
Right. And this lack of freedom she's talking about isn't a sign that we're not capitalists. I think it's a sign that we are capitalists because they're forcing you to do it their
You're
way.
absolutely right, Jamie. I wish I would have said that there on the stage. Where the hell were you?
I'm telling you, I wish I was there with you and we could have tag teamed this entire panel. It would have been great.
Gosh.
Hell yeah.
Let's keep going.
And that's what really bothers me when we talk about the strengths or weaknesses of capitalism. A lot of people, especially students, assume that most of the problems that America has are due to capitalism. 99.9% of the time, they are actually due to government regulation, not capitalism. I've heard people blame capitalism for America's terrible healthcare system. I don't know if you guys have seen all of the laws and regulations.
I know this whole thing. It's hard to get through this.
I mean, is she looking for a laugh there? Some sort of?
It's not because of capitalism, it's because regulations. It's because the capitalists, the people who own the majority of the capital, have paid off your government to make sure that you are regulated. It's a byproduct completely coming from capitalism, where if the state was controlling stuff, probably in their constitution, like, whatever, it'd say that the capitalists can't do that. So if they can't have lobbyists and buy it off or whatnot. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm not saying that too much power in one hand centralized is a good thing. I'm not saying that. But what she's doing is she's trying to dupe it and say that is not capitalism. And she's trying to make that's more about like communism because of the regulations that are there. And she's going to blame the state, not the corporation.
This goes back to my earlier point that anytime there's a problem, a crack in the dam, anytime something looks like it's not working for these type of thinkers, they go and blame something else that we're not actually implementing. They blame another thing. Why can't we look at the system we have in place and say this is a result? Our current state is a result of the system we chose to implement, not another system that we're not implementing. So they always do the circular thing back.
Why is it that the party of individual responsibility doesn't want to take any responsibility half the time? I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, the shame about it is that there haven't been enough people like me, right? We can't have somebody like, what's that dude in the chat, the Bordella guy who was giving me a lot of criticism because plays too much to team sports, right? He's a political Bordella. We can't, this guy right here, he can't do what I do because he plays team sports. Yeah. And he's doing exactly what they're doing. I'm trying to take partially of what they believe, what they say, and put it back on them to give them a different perspective. And there should be more common sense leftists at these things than people like Vosh and Destiny. And that's the reason why I went to this, because I felt, how I feel so strongly about election integrity that I said I'm going to go there to defend the conversation, because I'm not going to let this guy, the synthetic leftist, run away with the talking points and harm our ability and chance and our movement, even though it's small now, to get fair elections so we can hire and fire people at will.
Right.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Yeah, this is a kind of a long clip, so but it's hard to get through it because she keeps saying same things that we just need to push back on. Get out of here, logo.
Regulations that relate to healthcare in America, it's anything but capitalism. You also look at things like people looking at the housing crisis. That again, capitalism? No, it's not actually.
Pasta's
it's bad
taking his
government
notes.
policy. Whether it's banking, high student loan costs for people who are trying to borrow. All of these problems are actually government programs.
Pause.
People's lives.
Oh my God.
This is great, isn't it?
I mean, like,
she's fantastic.
Pause.
Let's get her on the show.
I gave her my business card. I mean, oh my God. Healthcare. If she said healthcare is anything but capitalism. No, our healthcare system is the most capitalist system in the face of the freaking world. It's completely private entities. Please. Matt, help me out with the
Let's go back to Obamacare. This is the thing that these are the exact same people that would say, "Oh, look what happens when we implement a socialist healthcare program." That was not a socialist healthcare program. By the way, Obamacare,
private insurance.
By the way, Obamacare was ripped off from Mitt Romney in Michigan. It
Yes.
was a Republican plan. It was not so to even understand that part, and the whole thing was done on purpose to make them be able to say, "Look what happens when we gave you a chance to have your socialist program. Look what happens. You force people into it like car insurance. That's not a socialist program to force people into a paying program that was going to give them the worst coverage, just like a car insurance company would give you the worst coverage if you got in an accident, because they're treating our bodies like it was a privilege to have one. That is not the fundamental principle of Medicare for all, of healthcare for everyone. Our bodies are not a privilege like a car. We have a right to it. We've never been able to see a system in place that has been a socialist based system of healthcare. They purposely will not let us even try it.
Yeah, and the schooling part, when she said the schooling situation is not even, I'm like, what? These are private loans that are guaranteed by the government. In other words, it's socialism for the corporations and the big banks landing out. And it's vulture capitalism for you,
exactly,
the little guy taking on these ridiculous loans. I mean, there used to be a law, used to be able to go to jail for usury, which meant it's like shylocking at an unreasonable rate, where the government says, okay, you can't, that was the thing about the mafia. You can't break somebody's finger if they don't pay the loan. You can't cause harm. You can't charge 20 points or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, the credit card companies had these laws changed so they can charge a ridiculous amount. I think they cited the fact that they had to get charged the extra money because of theft and whatnot, right? So this is literally socialism for the banks, for the rich, and vulture capitalist for us. I mean, she's completely off here.
She's inverted the whole argument.
But she's very pretty, very nice, and she has guts for going up there. She's got more guts than fish than going up and doing stand-up comedy. So I applaud Lauren Chen.
She did have a lot of guts going up there and doing her.
Yes, she did.
All right, let's keep going.
More bullshit.
The only reason people think it's capitalism, though, is because it's happening in America and they're operating under the false assumption that America is capitalist. It's not.
Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't going to stop it.
Can I?
I had to stop it because I'm screaming.
I need a wall to bang my head on.
Right. I'm screaming. I'm not going to hear the next thing she has to say, so that's why I had to stop it. Because.
Oh my god.
Okay. Let's keep going.
It's at
What's
best
a freer country than America?
Well, in terms of economic freedom,
what about individual liberties?
When it depends on what kind of individual liberties. So
like
to me,
right
you
to
cannot
speak,
you cannot
the
have
right to your
you
to
cannot
practice
have
your religion.
you cannot have economic freedom, or you can't have individual liberty without economic freedom, because economic freedom relates to property rights.
Pick
and
your
without
definition and
rights,
tell me a country.
Well, when it comes to economic freedom, it used to be Hong Kong, right? You have a flat
but
tax.
it's not a
China.
freer country now.
No, not now. But you also have countries. I mean,
China took it over, right?
Yep.
Taxes,
The Cayman
and
Islands
yeah,
because of the taxes.
right.
So so we should all be moving to the Cayman Islands, raise our families there.
Well, if you care about
She
things like
kinda
individual
does stick it
liberty,
to Lauren
including
here. It's
economics,
kinda
you should
funny.
be asking why America isn't more free like that. And I want America to be freer.
So the idea is less government regulation,
Yeah, absolutely.
less like in terms of taxes.
Yeah,
and things like that.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, for
100%.
sure.
100%.
You got some collapse. By the way, Jamie, like I know we got to still make a little bit more improvements on the lighting here, maybe a couple more lightings and stuff. But the Mindfest, if they get any points docked against them, they should have brought in some separate lights or some spotlights. It's very dimly dark over there. I would have liked to seen a little bit more brightness on us. But go ahead, Jamie.
Well,
Sorry.
we could brighten up the video post, but this isn't our video. But there's not really much more to this. I mean, I can move on to the next clip if you want. But
yeah, let's move on to the next clip.
I feel like what Lauren's doing is kind of inverting the subject of regulation, or this is what libertarians do. I think it's like there's a lot of regulations on us as people, and they hate that, and I agree with them on that. I don't think people should be regulated so much, but we have very few regulations when it comes on businesses and what they're allowed to do, and I think we need to invert that. Put the regulations on the companies and the businesses because they have a bigger responsibility than the whole community, and then have less regulations on people. Like as long as what you're doing isn't hurting somebody else, you should be allowed to do it.
Yeah, I'm ducking down under the little whatchamacallit we got over here. Is the Minds Fest, ladies and gentlemen. That is Matt Weinglass. He is my co-host today. You were watching Pasta to Go. Please, if you haven't, go and join the Homeless Left. Please do so. It's a non-tribal approach to news. I love the name. It's so true. It's what we needed because, you know, people called me the common sense leftist, the anti-imperialist leftist. We are a homeless left. We have no help within our, you know, our Congress whatsoever. You have every single Democrat out there that's supposed to represent the left in the United States voting for the Ukraine war, still to this day, still wanting to fund it. Even people like Barbara Lee, who was the only one to push back against the AUMF. We have no friends. We are a homeless left out here. But together, we watch these shows. We can come together. We can build a home and a movement for ourselves. Also, part of the reason why I said I have to go take on Destiny, because I need to represent the homeless left. Not some no, I don't. We can't have his position represented all the time. So please go join his show. What do you got next for us, Jamie?
All right, let's keep going. This one, I think this is you responding to cultural Marxism.
Should be fun.
To do whatever they can individually to push the message. And yes, they work in corporations.
One thing that we saw that was amazing, though, was when DeSantis pushed through the Parental Rights in Education Act, and that happened in Florida, and Disney freaked out, right? We also saw that the basic workers at Disney were incredibly in favor of the parental rights in education law, as were the majority of Americans, right, across the nation. So we see that perhaps these elites are pushing this stuff. They're pushing this shit onto us. But for the most part, the workers, who I would say, like, a lot of us are, you know, we have a job, we earn a salary, we're very happy to pay our mortgage with that, you know, with that money. We're not in favor of this stuff. And so to a certain extent, I think that we can look to basic Americans, the people who are out there just living their lives, who want to raise their families, who want the dignity of a decent job with good working conditions, fair pay, and want to be essentially left alone, to push back against this stuff. And that's kind of what I was getting at with the idea of shared values being our natural rights. Because one of the biggest American values is leave me the fuck alone, to work my job, to take care of my family, to live my life, get off my lawn. You know what I mean? Like, keep your bullshit porn out of my kids' schools. Let me raise my kids my way. It's not up to you. Don't close my churches just because you're afraid of some, you know, cold virus. You know, this is the American values, and these are American values that I would say, I don't know, some, you know, 75 million of us share, perhaps, you know, and I think that that's really important to remember when we think about these corporations and we think about, you know, the woke communists in government and stupid Joe Biden, and we think about all of these people who are pushing this stuff. They yell that it's from the bottom up and the middle out, and we know it's from the top down with their big jack boots trying to step on us, you know what I mean, or expensive ones, whatever it is. So we know that that's all true, and we can look to our countrymen. We know that Americans are at the core good people who just want to do the right thing and want to live their lives. And that's why I say that there's hope for this country, because I believe in my countrymen. I believe in Americans.
You know, awesome stuff, by the way. You know who believe that they should blow up the whole system and start over again? Marxist, right? And let me just make this point real quick. Build back better, not at all, and stuff like that. And the fact that we even try to call Joe Biden a communist is delirious right now. He's not a communist now, and at all. And let me just make a point right now, because we're talking about Marxism. I think what people are trying to refer to, someone on this panel, Lauren, you were talking about it. It's cultural Marxism. You know what the crazy thing about cultural Marxism? It didn't come from Marx. It came hundreds of years after from a campus, whatnot. It's a twisted ideology. It never came from Marx. And I've also heard you say, too, as well, that, you know, and I hear people say this all the time, you know, we never really had a pure capitalist system. You know who also say that? Communists. Communists say all the time, we never had a pure communist system. There's a lot of communism who believe that eventually we'll get to a stateless society, a utopia of sorts. Now, I don't believe we'll get there whatsoever, but I do believe in a capitalist society will always morph into some form of fascism. The corporations will always have control. They'll control the resources, and they'll control the markets. So that's just something I want to kind of point out more than anything. And in a lot of, when it comes to Marxist ideology, it simply is a workers' ideology at the end of the day.
But
there
it's
are good
not
and bad.
anymore. It's not
Anymore.
workers anymore.
But
like,
if we're
that's
talking
the
about the
old
roots,
idea. That's the old idea of Marxism, is that it was the workers.
To
And even if you look at it, sure, but even if you look at it, even if you look at the European methods of Marxism and communism, even if you look at it in Asia, and you know, you have
okay, that's kind of where I wanted to end it. The thing is, I think she's wrong. I think it is still a workers' revolution. But that's not how the right wants to allow us to talk about it. So when you talk to real communists, that's what they're going to say. And she's saying it's not about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got to
that's
figure out
the
how to
whole
push
thing is
back
that
on
they want to redefine it a new way. And she tried to get some, and you kind of paused it at the end where it got caught up to it. Oh, that's not the way they look at it in Asia, or they look at it over here. But
right.
Oh, you've been to Latin America, so you actually have spoken to real communists in Latin America and socialists in Latin America. So wait a second, I'm getting my perspective from where? And here it is. You could see she's Libby Evans, and she's awesome, dude. I hope she comes on the show. I've invited everybody on this panel to come on my show. And she is one of the editor-in-chiefs, right, the EIC of the Pulse Millennial. And you can see the Pulse Millennial has close to 375,000 followers, news analysts and opinion from U.S., Canada, and the world. Sign up for the newsletter today. Also, too, if you look right here, Human Events, another big platform, 108,000, whatnot, established in 1944. So, I mean, she does have big outlets. She does have a lot of reach, but she did run out of steam when she started talking about Latin America, because I said to her, I said, yes. And I explained that to you. Saw what I said in Nicaragua in the beginning. They pull together. It's a form of collectivism, and they're fighting for freedom for the United States empire, right? And they want to make sure their workers are taken care of, that the capitalists, what they say, don't control everything, don't seize their natural resources and extract it for pennies on the dollar. They make sure that they get their due. And at the end of the day, that's how they view Marxism. In fact, when some of those socialists and those communists asked me, they were very puzzled by the trans issues in the United States, the trans movement in the United States. They couldn't understand it, right? So that's another part where they say, oh, replacement theory. And they're getting all these socialists that come here and these communists that come here from Latin America, and they're going to vote Democrats. No, they're not. They're hardcore Christians in these countries, hardcore Catholics, a lot of them. They're not going to go along with today's woke ideology, right? Changing the word. Sorry to my friends out at RBN. That's the ones who taught me in the beginning, like woke used to be a good word. Yeah. I went back and looked at the roots. So big ups to them over there. But you know what I'm saying? When you see these people in Latin America, that's how they look at it. And it's just very different. So at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but I disagree with Libby. You know what I'm saying? She's trying to paint a certain picture on what communism is. Lauren Chen tried to do the same thing. And unfortunately, they missed the mark a lot. They really did. And it's just nowadays. I'm like, well, who gets the right to define with the word communism? So in your hemisphere, in your echo chamber, that's how you view communists. But all right, so just say it's me and you in the room. I'm not in your echo chamber. Do you get to redefine communism for what its original form is and what I think it is?
Well, if you're taking the lead from NPR's new CEO,
everybody has their own truth.
You can have your own truth, baby. Just make it up. And it feels good, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
Just feel good about it. It's your
pasta. Nina Jankowicz is back, too, as well. They give her another The Sunshine song. Oh, my God. Nina Jankowicz is back. Ladies and gentlemen, how can we miss you if you don't go away? Go away, Nina Jankowicz. Jamie, you were saying, I'm sorry before I cut you off, buddy.
Oh, no. I was going to say, if you want to keep arguing with Libby, we can keep playing this clip because she'll give you more to argue about. I just didn't know where to cut her off because it just keeps going on.
Do you have another clip after this? Because this segment's going pretty long.
Yeah, I've got other clips we can watch. So
move on to another clip.
I hated to cut her off, but I had to cut her off somewhere. All right.
She had Libby Evans has enough time. Listen,
she had a lot. I mean, she was the one that was giving you the most trouble.
Not because I agree with it. I thought it was good the way she presented it. And yes. I said good stuff because I understand where you're coming from, but no. And also in that clip, I was addressing stuff that happened before. And remember, there was a bunch of people there, so I had to digress a little bit to go after the bulk of the stuff that Joe Allen and Lauren Chen were addressing. That's why I had to take a step back. And I know we've talked about it. We've kind of already ruined the surprise. We told you how the movie ends throughout this whole episode, but yeah, please continue.
Here's the unfettered capitalism part from you.
Okay.
I agree that a very important element of American freedom is the freedom to be left alone. But you have to ask yourself, did Walmart leave us alone? Did Google leave us alone? Is Raytheon, as we're drug into various wars overseas, are they leaving us alone?
Can you pause?
I don't see the solution necessarily.
Yeah, this is Joe Allen. This
is Joe Allen. He's a regular on Steve Bannon. But you hear that again? The leave us alone. It's the corporations. It's the fascism that's looking in on you. It's big tech that's spying on you. It's Raytheon and all these companies lobbying the government and picking their own candidates that run for office so they can put them in play so they can have endless war. This is not communism at all. This is pure capitalism, and this is
And-
part of the problem.
And they're
Please
so good at identifying the problem, right? But they just can't
blame
they
it.
can't figure out the cause.
They can't figure out the cause. They can't figure out that Google is the problem is the result of the corporate takeover. It's corporatism. I like to say corporatism. I got that term from Max Blumenthal, who actually brought it to, I want to say this, we were at the...
What is it again? Say it again.
It's called corporatism.
Yes.
He brought that word, and you were talking about connecting with a right-wing populist movement. We were in downtown LA. He came out for the End the Mandates lockdown. Everybody up there.
DC?
It was, no, this was LA, downtown
in
LA.
LA.
So we had all the doctors.
I didn't meet you there.
No, we did not meet until after. So this was before. Okay, but we were there.
I was there.
You know, a lot of people there. Jimmy Dore.
I got to MC the last part of the thing.
Kim Iverson. Jackson Hinkle was in the crowd doing his little thing.
He did. He spoke to me. But we had one guy who was a contact with all four of us. We were like the lefties. We were all on the same thread. It was Max, Kim, me, and Jimmy.
There's a little Naomi Wolf in there, but like I get you.
Yeah.
Wait, but here was the big.
She
problem.
wasn't on our thread.
She wasn't really on the thread. But what was going on was the everybody going up on that stage except for this little group of four, right? Everybody getting on that stage was using these same talking points. We're hearing a couple years later, same shit about we're going to communism. We're going to communism. Yeah. They're not seeing the thing that we're in that park that day for was battling the corporate takeover. And when Max Blumenthal got on that stage, he connected everything with the word corporatism. Yeah. And the crowd paid attention. I thought it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And that's
what he said. I'm sorry, it's not communism. He said in that speech.
It's called corporatism. And that's where we get.
Right. He said it's not socialism. He says it's corporatism. He just said it's corporatism. Please go.
And corporatism is just another word for capitalism.
Right, but it's a way he can say, "Don't worry, I'm not getting in. You can keep your little fun word to yourself. We won't infringe on your little word that you like because a lot of ego."
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, you're right. Should we keep going?
Yeah, Joe Allen.
All right.
In even kind of giving a lot of weight and credence to these corporations in the name of a free market or capitalism, because in the end, not to agree too much with our spaghetti friend over here, but not to agree too much, but in the end, as corporations move more and more towards monopolies or just cabals, cartels, the freedom is just as much at risk because of corporate rule as it is because some lefty is saying, I want to be able to, I don't know, wear a dress in the bathroom.
It's probably more at risk if you think about it, right? It's way more at risk. And by the way, I mean, while we do have a little bit of time up here too as well, I think there's something we have to address that we haven't addressed, right? Because I knew coming on this panel.
We're not on the end yet, though.
I know.
You're just taking over. We're just getting started.
Well, it's something I want to address to something that was said too as well, because we did mention Mao, right? I knew Mao was going to come up in this conversation, but we never look at the situation with China before Mao had happened. And after Mao died, the Gang of Four was immediately arrested. And I don't understand why the party of individual responsibility always wants to blame somebody else for their problems. They always want to blame the communists for their problems. They always want to make a tie between communism. And what's the biggest communist country out there right now? China, right? Everybody talks about China this, China that. I mean, China, they hang and kill their bankers right there. I like to see some of that action over here. And not to mention, they're not even a communist country, right? They're kind of like this free market socialist. Well, they do have that, but they're like a free market socialist because they have
So I want to stop right here. This is what Richard Wolff explains this pretty well. They don't what China calls themselves as a socialist country with Chinese characteristics. That's how they describe themselves. They don't even describe themselves.
It's not China. It's markets. Of course, you can say it to its roots, but it is a form of actual capitalism, I think, where they have markets in which people can choose what they want to get, and they don't necessarily have to depend on the state for everything, Right.
And I think those are the Chinese characteristics. I think China thinks that they can control capitalism, this beast, and keep it in its cage and use it, use its strengths and try to squash its weaknesses. And but they don't call themselves communists. They call themselves socialists with Chinese characteristics who are working towards a communist system.
And this is Dick Wolf saying this stuff, Mr. Bordello, who's been still, Dan, it's, I really wanted your criticisms to be valid and stuff like that, but you act like such a baby. You couldn't do this panel, man. But anyways, that's just somebody I'm trolling somebody in the chat. I just wish you would have grown up, given us more. You disappointed me.
One thing that needs to be made clear about China is even where it came from, where it is now, we have a billionaire class that's very important part of where they are now. The billionaire class got a little bit of power there. So it's another form, as Max Blumenthal would say, it's another form of corporatism. You have a merging of the small little billionaire class they have there, making decisions for the government. It's a merging, and that's where you get fascism. It's the merging of corporations and government. So that's what we're seeing. So every time we hear Chinese Communist Party, that's language designed to make us write the whole thing off and not look at the integral details and how they got to where they are right now.
Well, Jamie, we got to eventually wrap this section up soon because it's getting long. But I want to address this one case over here. Who cares how the CCP describes itself? It's a top-down authoritarian society. By the way, if anybody wants to leave a super chat, you can go to Pasta to Go and leave a super chat over there. I would greatly appreciate it. It helps me get on the ground for all these events like the Minds Fest, where I was able to have these great conversations. Well, number one, DE, let me just say this much. At the end of the day, my message was clear. That, okay, I'm not the type of guy that's going to wear a Mao or a Xi Jinping t-shirt. I'm not going to say we need to go to a Chinese system, even though I want some types of mixed system, take the good and bad, take the good from everything, leave the bad behind. It's up to the Chinese people on how they decide what kind of country they want to have, right? And like I said, at the end, in the beginning of the show, the manufacturing consent towards China and communism being the enemy is a manufactured consent for a movement towards a war with China, because they always bring us to war, and they're, our actions in the South China Sea and whatnot. So at the end of the day, all I can look at is reflect on how are we foreign policy wise, how are we geographically, right? Geopolitically, I should say. We have 1,000 bases all around the place. They have like 3 bases outside their own territory. So that's what the things I want to point out. I get it with this kind of an American perspective to say, it doesn't make a difference. They suck. They have a top-down authoritarian society. We should be pushing back against that. No. We need to clean our own house first. We need to take care of our own problem. And we can only look in respect or disrespect on how they're doing foreign policy-wise, as far as when's the last time they've been in some type of military conflict, like 1970s, a little bit with Vietnam. I mean, it's ridiculous when you compare our societies, and they're not looking for a war. They're looking to come in with their checkbook. They're looking to come in with their ingenuity. And that's what we need to get back to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't care how authoritarian or not authoritarian, whichever it is, China is. I care about how authoritarian America is right now. I mean, just look outside your window. Look what's going on all across the country. If we're not authoritarian, I don't know what is, because we're in a much more unstable, like authoritarian situation than I think China is at the moment. So why are people so worried about the authoritarianism in another country and just kind of being oblivious and accepting it when it's happening right here at home? I don't know how do we get that message to them? Like, look at the authoritarianism here.
It's planting seeds. This is what it's all about. This is what we're doing right now. We have to go for understanding. I know that we can do it. I know we can connect with our right-wing populist friends. You're still our friends. We love what you guys did with COVID. We love what you guys did, even with a little bit of the Ukraine war. You guys are on the right side there. You libertarians, we got you. We need to just go a little further with you. Connect the dots on this one, and we'll be okay.
The problem with the libertarian movement is that they're so, and they just had a problem. Right when I got into this event and I checked in, I spoke with Fiorella, and she says, "Did you see what the New Hampshire Libertarian Party is putting up on their thing?" And I knew exactly it was Jeremy Kaufman, who's one of the head figures in the Libertarian New Hampshire Party, and he runs that Twitter. My other friend does not. He's not there anymore. He's not doing it anymore. But he put something stupid right now, and it was like they have such a disdain for socialism and communism. Like Jeremy Kaufman, who made these stupid comments that the cops should start shooting these people.
I saw that
stuff. Right?
Oh, that got taken down.
An asinine
comment.
There
goes everything. There goes your whole protest.
Everything you've done. Even Daniel McAdams went back at him like, "What is wrong with you?" Now, like, listen, if these people are getting violent and pushing, make arrest. But shooting people, it's just so stupid. And then he goes on to do what's even worse than these people are doing right here. He tries to frame it that all socialists want non-socialists killed or dead.
Oh my God!
Like communists want, and a lot of libertarians have a problem. Now, listen, when we get into your segment today, right, we're going to show you that a lot of times the authoritarian rule in that element does work, but that does not paint the majority of people. First of all, they really don't consider themselves just socialist or Leninist or Marxist. They just consider themselves for workers' rights.
Workers' rights.
Less control from the corporatism, right? That's what they want. So when you kind of say that they want everybody dead, and therefore it justifies you saying that they should be dead, You're just ruining your movement and stuff. And like I said, I wish Angela McArdle, I don't think she can, but I wish she could find a way to sack this son of a bitch because he's ruined any momentum that the Libertarian Party got. He's really, this guy is single-handedly hit them down a few notches because a lot of people look at that New Hampshire Libertarian Party and they staple those views from this one individual on the whole party. And I know I've heard them, I've listened to a podcast with them where I think his name is Michael Heist, I believe, if I can get it right. He's the head of the Mises Caucus, pushing back against Jeremy, like, you just don't give a damn that people will perceive this a certain way. You're still just going to put it out there. You know what Jeremy said when I put that on the Twitter? Tell me what good libertarian books you've read, huh? Like, oh, you're Mr. Libertarian. What you says, it's just sad, Mr. Kaufman, what you're doing. You're pissing on your own colleagues' work and the work they've done within the party.
He sounds like an infiltrator.
No, he sounds like an infiltrator. He sounds like he's getting his
talking
points.
He's a useful idiot.
He's getting his talking points from Netanyahu, from the IDF. I mean, that's the approach to debate. Is you question the person's. That was a legitimate critique that he received, and his approach is to criticize the person back and say, what do you know about the thing? And now what? That means you won. That's not an argument to the thing you did.
And he's been making the argument, Matt, that he's had the most anti-Israeli Twitter out there or position out there, which a lot of the people like Scott Horton, Dave Smith, they've pushed back against the state of Israel hard, right? So he's like, well, I've taken that position, so that gives me the right to be an asshole on this other position. It's like, you've done more harm than you've done well. You take one step forward and then 2 steps back, Mr. Kaufman.
Yeah. Let's get to your unfettered capitalism stuff here.
Gotcha. Unfettered capitalism out there. They have a better
Don't they have slavery?
They have, wait 1 second, let me finish. They have a better homeowner percentage per person than the United States. They have small business owners, bigger, better capital per person than the United States. They have unfettered capitalism without these regulations going on over there. This is just true. These are facts out there. And there's a lot of people who say
China has unfettered capitalism. You realize that China is a state-controlled economy, right?
All these lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I said unfettered capitalism, I said it wrong. I should have said unregulated or deregulated capitalism. They don't have the regulations that we have, which are what's really crippling. Okay, so there are some regulations where people used to refer to them as protections, right? You can't dirty the water, you can't dirty the air, and that's how they sound. But most of your regulations are so much red tape that they're designed for the little guy to never be able to take off in a business, or if he does get his business open, he's going to be handicapped and taxed to death. That he won't be able to survive, and the big corporations will take that over. That's not the case in certain sectors of the Chinese economy, and that's something I should have made clear, Jamie. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Well, I think you didn't do a bad job here, but I just, when I hear unfettered capitalism, I look at China and I think, wait, no, China has very much fettered capitalism. But you and I have a different perspective on what we believe unfettered or fettered means.
It's controlled, right?
Yeah. There's about controls somewhere. It's just the controls are in different places in China than where they are in the United States.
Yeah.
We're going to keep going with this clip because it rolls right into the last thing I wanted to talk about. This is where Lauren Chen asks you why communism never works. And I think you had a missed opportunity here. You went in a different direction with the answer than what I would have said. But let's go ahead and hear what you had to say.
Are we?
I agree
but
to a certain extent. But
there's
that
small
that
business
China
ownership. There's home ownership in China right now. And look at the Chinese economy. What's going on over there? We're using railroads from 1973, technology from like 1970s. They got high-speed rail going all over the place. They have less homeless people there right now in China than we do in the United States. We got to start looking inwards and see what we're doing to ourselves instead of blaming China for everything.
But America, supposedly most capitalist country, China maybe even more capitalist than them somehow. What do you think capitalism means?
Well, I think it means a lot, but the best thing about capitalism to me at the end of the day is about choice, right? Real capitalism is about choice. You get to choose. The state or the corporations don't tell you what to do.
Okay, so that's not China at all in any way.
That's nowhere. But we established this earlier. There's never been a true capitalist country. There's never been a true communist country at the end of the day.
I don't think we established that.
We have to take the good and bad from everything. Take what
Why
works.
do you think communism has never worked?
The same reason why capitalism has never really worked. The elites and the ruling class have always had control of everything. We have a global plan that's going on right now. These are globalists out here that are trying to put us on this technocratic, woke, fascist kind of global mentality. Whether you want to call it stakeholder capitalism, whether you want to call it fascism, We know there's an enemy behind the curtain, and that's what we have to do. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think the one thing that we haven't talked about, why it's so bad to blame communists, is because at the end of the day, it's not just about understanding the man behind the curtain. It's about what they want to do. They want to move us to a war. They want to manufacture consent for a war. Whenever the population starts looking at the ruling class and understanding what they're doing, they move us to war. They want to move us to war with China right now, and we all know that.
You know,
All right.
Yeah.
So what do you think about your answer there?
I think I got my point across, and that's what I wanted to do. So
I would say there was you explained that beautifully, but the initial question to you was why hasn't or what was she says
Why has communism never worked?
Why has communism never worked? The first part of that question is because we never let it. We always make sure
Yes.
it fails.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
the first. It's the aggressive part of
Right.
capitalism is the military. We need to talk about military. How many times did that come up in this in the panel when that's really the heart and soul of capitalism is militarism. It's policing the world and stopping any other government from trying anything on their own, so we can implement a right-wing dictatorship. And then tell everyone, like Venezuela is a great example. Let's look at Venezuela. You destroy, you sanction the shit out of them. You destroy their economy. You make the people rise up. You make everything just completely horrible to live in. You have 4 million people now displaced from there. And then you say, oh, look what happens when we let them do socialism, communism. It fails. Really? Then why didn't you let it fail on its own? Why did you have to get involved in
Right.
it?
I think
I
there's
agree.
something on the flip side of that coin is because they don't want people to see that it can be successful, because
exactly.
then we'll start demanding
It's-
things like healthcare, education, infrastructure, all that whole 9 yards.
It's
Good,
a
Jamie.
threat of the good example. And so well, I think the mistake you made there was you accepted the premise of their question. And you could have pushed back right away with an example and say, well, let's look at Vietnam. Ever since they won the Vietnam War, we've had to leave them alone. And they're a communist country, and they've been pretty damn successful for 40 years.
Yeah, and they do have
And-
capitalism there because they have
Well,
markets that come
they-
in, right, where people can come in, buy stuff, purchase stuff.
And they have
I
to
don't think
use it because they have to.
market shouldn't be equated with capitalism because socialism does have existing markets in their
Right.
theories too as well. So
They
it's
have
really
to use it
fair.
for international trade and working with the rest of the world. But internally, Vietnam is the most communist country we probably have. We also say that China is a communist country, although we've had that argument whether or not that is true or not. But if they say communism's never worked, but they say China's a communist country and China's being extremely successful, how can they say communism's never worked? And then they just totally overlook Vietnam, which has been working fine since we've been leaving them alone. We cannot go into Vietnam anymore because it would be political suicide for anybody who said we should go back into Vietnam. And also Portugal isn't quite communist, but they got I think they have a communist party that's actually in charge now, or has been for a few years. And they've been helping turn around Portugal. It's still got a lot of problems, but they're dealing with like decades and decades of stuff they've got to fix. They're doing better than Greece in terms of the way that they've been managing the country. And Greece turned to the European Union and making all those terrible financial deals, where Portugal took a different route led by the socialist and communist forces, and they're doing much better off. So I don't think you did a bad answer, but I just think you accepted their premise, and I think you should have pushed back on the premise of the question.
Well, I was already out of gas, and I was like, that was the end towards the end of the debate there, and I was battling the whole time. Remember, there's only so much I can do. The organizer was happy that I gave him a worthy pushback. They thought, I think they were happy with what was going on, and but listen, let's go to a break. Do you have anything else to say?
No, that was it. That was it. The only other thing you already touched on, and I didn't want to talk about it here because it's not YouTube friendly. So we can
so listen, let's go to a break. Let's play the pizza review. I have to use the little podcasters room, as like we call it over there. And then let's skip the election integrity side. Let's go right to Matt's section of what he experienced, because this went way over. I didn't think it was going to be so much, and we'll just do the election integrity stuff on Thursday, and we'll get, because I really want to. Listen, I was also on Alex Strenger's show on Friday. Go check it out. I put a clip up, and we talked about he's a Zionist. And I am not. We had some really a good, hearty conversation, but we were able to talk to each other. I love the kid. I consider him a friend. And I think it's also another example when you have to talk to somebody who's a pro-Zionist. Now, I will say that I don't want to say he's a common sense Zionist, but he does have a little bit more common sense positions where he holds Israel a little bit more accountable than, let's say, a Rabbi Shmuley. So I think that's going to really spin into what Matt has brought to the table today, because we got to talk about what's going on. This is so big. It's going right on down the street. I am Craig Pasta Jardula. This is Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left. Cheese slices on the 1 and 2. Any last words to say on your produced segment there? You want to give me did you give me a grade? Can I get a grade on how I did on the panel since you watched it 3 times?
I would say like an A-.
Oh, I'll take the A-. And for Matt, what you witnessed, not just being my friend and because I look good and I'm sexy, what would you give me grade-wise?
I'm giving you a 94 on that. And some would say that's a high A-, low A, but right there with you.
I think it's right near 9. Let's round up to 95, and it's an average A.
Okay. You did a very good job going into the Lion's Den. So,
I appreciate that.